Hi, Kerry here. Welcome to the channel, and if you're a regular viewer, welcome back. Today is the 6th of March 2022, and we're having like the last gasp of summer here. It's very warm. Recently it's got a little cooler, but looks like the seasons are about to change, and that is obviously expected. Now, what's going on with me before I start the review? I am waiting to hear on a job. Yes, another one. Could be good news. I might be working from home during the red status alert that we've got about COVID. We have currently experiencing a Omicron outbreak here in New Zealand. The number of cases have leveled off and have dropped a little bit in the last couple of days, which is a good sign, fingers crossed. Still, there's at least 6,000 cases in the city that I live in, and that has really kept me home for the last 2 weeks, and I've been looking for jobs where I can work from home. I may have found one. Hopefully I'll have good news on that in a week or two. Anyway, today I wanted to talk about The Border by Erika Fatland. Now, in the last video I kept calling her Flatland. It's actually Fatland. Apologies to Erika for my mistake. Now, this book is, I just want to do a short review really. I won't go into too much detail, but I just want to recommend this as being very, very, very good. Now, it's very timely as well. Like about 20 minutes after I finished reading this book, an alert came up on my phone saying that Vladimir Putin had launched his so-called special operation into Ukraine, and we all know what's happened since then if you've been keeping in touch with the news. This book provides a really, really good background to Russia's relations with its neighbouring countries, and there's quite a lengthy section on Ukraine and all its troubles it's had with Russia since it became independent 30 odd years ago. So this book is basically Erika Fatland. I think it came to her in a dream and idea to travel around all the nations, all the borders with the nation of Russia. So she starts out her journey by sea. She travels from the furthest eastern point of Russia in the eastern part of the country near Siberia, near the closest point to, I think, Alaska. And she travels on a ship, oddly enough, a New Zealand operated charter, with a bunch of mainly elderly people doing like their bucket list trips, all cashed up and ready to travel. And they travel westward from East Asia to Northern Europe by sea, and on the way they pass by all these various outposts and former outposts of the Soviet Union, and to see a bit of the wildlife, a bit of the people that are still sticking out in these remote places. And as they arrive in Murmansk, and that's that section of the book done. It's very interesting that she interviews a lot of the fellow passengers, and we find out their stories and why they're doing these trips and what they hope for. And then total change of scene. I'll read out the country she goes through, so in case I miss some out later. So she goes through North Korea, China, Mongolia, Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, Georgia, Ukraine, Belarus, Lithuania, Poland, Latvia, Estonia, Finland, Norway, and the sea journey that I also mentioned just before. So she starts out in North Korea, and rather than just doing the normal tourist thing in Pyongyang, she does actually travel around the country. Is allowed to talk to some ordinary people, well, with tight controls from the government, minders obviously. And she sees a bit more of North Korea than most people tend to see. And then she travels through China, some little lesser known Chinese cities like Dalian and so on. Different parts of China than usually gets a lot of coverage. And one of those cities is like in a whole underground city with shops and a mall. Whatever was originally built as like a nuclear shelter. And she runs into the normal issues of a person who doesn't speak Chinese language, and she meets a lot of ordinary people, and taxi drivers seem to be the same the world over. They're all slightly creepy, slightly a bit dodgy. Anyway, she goes on to Mongolia, and the good thing about this book is we get her travel experiences, we get her meeting the contemporary inhabitants of these places, but also she throws in a lot of detailed history about these countries and their relationships, like I said, with Russia. And most of these countries have been either invaded or threatened or annexed by or generally messed around by Russia in the past. And we get all the details, the personalities, the wars, the pacts, the treaties. She managed to drop that all in without bogging down the story. And on from Mongolia, she goes to Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, like I said, Georgia. Now, she really likes Georgia. She likes the people. She likes the food. And she travels to the breakaway area of Abkhazia, where the Russians are acting as peacekeepers. And I think she goes to talks to a man there whose house overnight changed from one country to another because they're creeping the borders across, just ever so slightly, so people don't usually notice. But this one guy got out of luck, and he woke up one day and he's in a totally different country. And yeah, so she goes through all the Central Asian states like Kazakhstan and what have you, and we learn about the dictators and their absurd plans and monuments and building projects, and then it's onto the more European part of the world, and go through the Baltic states, which are all very wary of Russia, and they all have their own Russian-speaking populations, which some of them look back at the Soviet Union as a fond memory for some reason, and these Baltic states are trying to like carve out their own niche, their own states, and they're just afraid that the Russians will come in and cause trouble. And then we're on to Europe, like Poland, where else was this? Finland. Learn about the Finnish, the great national heroes, their wars, the back and forth they did between the Nazis and the Russians. And then we end up in Norway, where she goes on a canoeing trip up to the northern border with Russia with her father. And that's interesting. She finds some military installations that she's not allowed to enter, and yeah, and so that's the trip. Like I said, it's really, really fascinating and really timely if you have any interest in geopolitics and the current situation with Ukraine and Russia. A lot of these issues these countries have go back a long, long way. There's a lot of talk about the wars with Sweden and, you know, hundreds of years ago. These countries were carved up and passed between one country and another, the territories that were, and it's really great. It's really engrossing to read these things. It reminds me of a lot of the adventure type travel books I used to read back in the 1990s, things like The World's Most Dangerous Places and that type of thing, except without the macho bravado. She's quite a great writer, expressive. There's a bit of humour in there when she talks to the locals and gets into some odd situations. Like I said, there are some really creepy people she meets as well. Lots of men always keep asking her if she's married, and in one case she's travelling on a ferry, I think, across the Caspian Sea, and these drunken men would try to get into her room at night, so she had to lock the door. Yeah, anyway, I really enjoyed the book. It's really good. It's really fascinating. And yeah, like I said, if you have any interest in Russia and its relations with its neighbours, it's a really good book to read. And surprisingly, it was actually written originally in Norwegian in about 2017, and it has been translated into English lately by a person called Carrie Dixon, and she has done a really good job of it. There's only about 2 passages in the book which didn't seem to make much sense to me, like it'd been translated directly without any context, but we can forgive that. The book is really good. And that is The Border by Erika Fatland. I will say that correctly this time, Erika Fatland. And she does have an earlier book called Sovietistan, where she travels just to the stans in Central Asia, and I think I might try and track that one down soon as well. Only trouble with this book, like I said, it was originally published in 2017 in Norwegian, and some of the information is a little bit dated about the current events. Things have moved on since this book, obviously, but that's the problem here with any book. It's a snapshot of a moment in time. Now, What am I reading now? I have moved on to a novel. It's sort of science fiction-y, sort of contemporary. It's called This by Adam Roberts, and I'm up to about 120 pages in, and it's the story of a gentleman called Rich. He is basically a loner, stay-at-home type person like myself, and he does jobs writing freelance things for he gets jobs via a website which tasks him with jobs. And set in 2026, I think, just a few years from now. And there's a social media type entity called This, and its novel thing is that the users get a implant type thing in the roof of their mouths, which is implanted by surgery, and then it gathers iron from the body's natural supply and grows this kind of matrix of stuff up into the brain, and then the people with this implant can communicate subvocally, almost like by thought, with other people with the same implants. And there's a lot of people in the book saying, oh, it's just Twitter with no hands needed or something, but it's obviously that something a little more creepy is going on, and it's become like a cult, and this cult is trying to get this rich guy to join, and so far he's resisted their attempts, and I'm just up to a bit where he's met like a bit of another person who's resisting this company. And there's another story thread which has shown briefly about further in the future, and there's like a hive mind culture against individual human cultures, and they're kind of like fighting over the earth and the solar system. So I assume this is this has developed into this hive mind. Now that is This by Adam Roberts. So it's really good so far. I'm hoping to get this finished in the next couple of days. So that's the video for today. I hope you like it. Subscribe, thumbs up, whatever you want. We'll see you next time.